Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to News9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi. Joining me here in the studio is my colleague Aditya Rajkal. And Showtime in Kashmir is certainly going to be our focus over the next couple of minutes. People can't stop talking about, Oppenheimer and Barbie, setting those records. But what's really happening is in Kashmir is going to be our focus. Welcome to this special edition show called Showtime in Kashmir, where we embark on a journey to understand the process of revival of the Kashmir Valley's lost romance with cinema. Let's go right across to the cinema owner amongst us. Dhar Saab, first and foremost, Oppenheimer, Barbie. I mean, people can't stop talking about these particular movies. What's the footfall like over there? Because had this INOX been, opened up in any other part of the country, people would talk about, how this is a great business opportunity. But considering it's happening in the valley, it is a bold step. So kudos to you for that. And just give us a sense of how it feels like going to the cinema today in Kashmir.
Well, it's actually a fantastic feeling. It's like I've been saying, it's an educational experience for us as well because Oppenheimer to get this kind of a footfall was not expected. I know a lot of people had been, asking us on social media, etc., as to when are you bringing Oppenheimer? Please don't skip Kashmir when the worldwide, release happens. And we did release it with the rest of the world, with the rest of India, and people have taken to it. There are fans of Cillian Murphy, there are fans of Christopher Nolan. They know a lot about the director, what all movies he's done. Barbie's taken off. I see people in all hues of pink, not just girls, but boys coming in pink clothes to watch Barbie. So it's actually very exciting. And I must tell you right now, all three of the movies that we are playing are Hollywood films. There's Mission Impossible, Barbie, and
Wow.
Oppenheimer, and all three doing quite well. Quite well.
Well, absolutely. Let's quickly cut across to a former government voice with us on the broadcast as well. Nirupama Kotru, former Joint Secretary for Culture and, a Director, the Film Division for the Ministry of INB. Very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Ma'am, your outlook, in the documentary as well, there are certain portions where, this resident is talking about how इतनी भीड़ हो जाती थी, इतना तर्जुमा इतना लोगों का बढ़ गया कि पुलिस को आना पड़ा. They had to control the crowd, disperse the crowd sometimes. That's how people enjoyed entertainment in the valley. But at the same time, there are some negative aspects to that as well. There's always the possibility of running into the same quarters again. Do you think that is something that people have to now tread carefully with?
See, at the outset, I want to first congratulate Vikas and the Dhar family because they've really done a brilliant job. It's
Certainly.
really a land for all of us, for an entrepreneur to come forward and do this. So I'm hoping that, like the thumbs up ad in the 80s, happy days are here again. So I'm really hopeful that this is going to catch on. There will be many more theaters opening. Of course, Oppenheimer, as you know, there's been a lot of discussion. As somebody who's a cinephile, I want to tell you, Nolan has a lot of fans in India, and obviously Kashmiris are also fans of Nolan. It's no surprise. He's a director known to, give a lot of thought to the way he shoots his films. So I hope next time Kashmiris will get to watch his films in IMAX. But it's also heartening to know Barbie is doing well. I believe Pathan had done well, and Shah Rukh's next release, Jawan, is going to possibly also do well. So, the initial bit of hesitancy, I think, is going away now because if you remember after COVID, there was something which is called revenge dining, and we see the same thing in going to films. This weekend has been phenomenal all over India, if you've seen reports. It's really phenomenal, and not just India. Let me tell you, I was just reading this box office expert in California. I think his name is Tom Brugman. Said that this weekend is a landmark because people have really given their stamp of approval for fresh content, originality, and both these directors, Greta Gerwig and Christopher Nolan, of course, they're known to really put in hard work. They've co-written their films. So it's
Right.
been a brilliant weekend for the whole world.
No,
And
no kidding, ma'am. You're absolutely right. I mean,
yes,
I've been trying to catch hold of a couple of tickets for Oppenheimer in the national capital, and it's certainly an uphill task. And you don't want to. You'd rather watch, Christopher Nolan and all its magnanimity. I wish there were some screens that could do justice to the kind of film he's used while shooting it as well. But that's certainly a different debate. Nirupama ji, in the documentary, there's something really interesting that you pointed out. You said, think about the youth. The youth had nothing to do. There wasn't any sports. For a youth that's growing up, it has to go out. It has to, be more sociable than it was in let's say the last decade or 15 years or so. Do you think we finally turned a new leaf in that aspect?
absolutely. 30 years, you can imagine, in the 80s, when slowly filmmakers stopped coming to the valley because of security reasons. I think one of the last films shot there was in 88, Joshile, if I remember correctly. Vinod Khanna and the whole crew were there. And, there were small incidents of militancy at that time. So some a bomb blast here and something here, and things started getting really bad. So obviously, a filmmaker can't put his crew and cast's lives in jeopardy, right? So they stopped coming there. So that was a big blow to every Kashmiri because we've grown up seeing these big film units come and stay there. I mean, every filmmaker worth his salt, especially the 70s, if you remember, Gulzar Saab came with Andhi crew, and Rishikesh Mukherjee, Bemisal, of course, was shot there. And Satya Pe Satta, one of the biggest blockbusters of Amitabh Bachchan, was shot there. And all the films were very warmly received because Kashmiris were so happy. I mean, and Kashmiri hospitality is renowned. So everybody who came to Kashmir, the units, they were thrilled. It was always like a party for them, And this I've heard from people who have worked in these units, the filmmakers, the film stars. You talk to anybody who has come to Kashmir as part of a film unit, they loved it. And people loved them back. People were very hospitable, very warm, and that warmth really translates into good cinema. So then, when obviously the audience connects very well with it. I mean, Kashmiris were really fond of films, so they're deprived of films for 30 years. So this is my generation, my parents' generation, and our the children, the younger generation was completely deprived because 30 years you had nothing. So
Absolutely, ma'am. You've hit the nail right on its head, and I don't think anybody could have put that better to be thinking about the youth in the valley as well. We also have with us a cinema enthusiast, Dr. Suneem Khan. Doctor, first and foremost, let's do away with this smiling bit. What was the latest movie that you went for? How did you like it? Was it a Bollywood film? Was it a Hollywood film?
The latest movie that I saw was Pathan. And it was not in INOX because I was in Jammu back then. So I saw it in Jammu.
All right.
But I was actually monitoring the response of Kashmiris to the release of Pathan. Vikas would bear me out. I had a series of conversations with him. We had a series of exchange of notes on WhatsApp on the rush of cinegoers to INOX Srinagar. And I was absolutely thrilled and delighted.
So and at the same time, Dr. Suneem Khan, now that we know that, the last movie that you saw was a Bollywood film and you're a cinema goer yourself, the idea of reviving cinema in the Kashmir Valley, what kind of challenges do you think it's going to come up with? I mean, because we must talk about the challenges as well. Not everything should be hunky-dory. Let's take a look at what challenges might prop up in the days to come.
Usually, to understand the challenges, first of all, you have to come to the point from a certain trajectory. You have to understand that cinema has always been a part of the lives of Kashmiris right since the inception of the word cinema, especially in the Indian context I'm talking about, the Bollywood context I'm talking about. The inception of insurgency in 1989 until this point in time, when the cinema returned to Kashmir after a hiatus of 32 years. Kashmiris always yearned for the other part of the soul by traveling as long as 300 kilometers right down to Jammu and watching their favorite films on big screen and then on mobile phones with the advent of 4G and 5G and so on and so forth. So it was always a part of their lives, a part of their existence, a part of their soul. if I'm not, oversaying it. So coming to the point where you questioned me about the challenges that we are going to face is basically we have to make sure that there is no, there was something at play in early 90s, 89, 90, when the cinemas actually were shut down.
Right.
I, in my own way, would like to call it as tyranny of minority. It was a very handful of people with a great nuisance quotient who made sure that cinemas, bars, beauty parlors, audio kiosks, etc., anything that had to do with entertainment and fashion was shut down, which means that you kill all the avenues of entertainment of the population and more specifically the youth. So we have to make sure that the tyranny does not, catch on to that nuisance quotient, and it does not play over the thinner population, which is a huge number, as Nirupamaji rightly said. Very hospitable people, very cultured people. They have a life. They are a civilization. I mean, very colorful civilization with a life, with a culture, with a very rich history. You don't have to actually, let that tyranny of minority play over again and create hiccups in the proliferation of cinema.
That's actually a very good point, Dr. Suneem, that you've put forth. But, Aditya, echoing on that point, Dr. Suneem's talking about that particular campaign, against entertainment, art, literature, these kind of galleries, cinema halls. We saw those visuals ourselves. Do you think that impacted the storytelling? I mean, the onset of terror in the 1990s in the Valley, disrupting, derailing cinema completely. Did you think that impacted the storytelling of the Valley as well?
Of course it did, because the Bollywood was only focused on one aspect, which is conflict and nothing more. There were several other human interest stories or stories of love, romance that could have been captured in Kashmir, but
they wouldn't sell as much.
They wouldn't sell as much, or nobody shows the interest in it. Nobody had the courage, in fact, to go to Kashmir in these 30 years and shoot, apart from a rare, Mission Kashmir and a couple of others. But the larger aspect here is that there were threats, there were diktats, there were fatwas issued by radical Islamist organizations, including Hizbul Mujahideen, Al-Fatah and others, saying that anybody who goes to cinema hall will be targeted. In fact, I remember in 1999 when Regal and a couple of other cinema halls were opened, on the very first day, there were grenade attacks on them. But this time around, after the 370 abrogation, the government took a call. Of course, the private sector came in. There was the Vijay Dar family, which is of course a very historical family. We know about Mr. D.P. Dar and the philanthropist that he was, and of course his son Vijay Dar, and now Vikas taking that tradition forward. So they had the courage to establish this, because it's not just about money. It's about the courage of conviction, of actually establishing it and standing by it, because there is fear of an attack, there is security outside, and there is still a lot of confidence that needs to be instilled in the local population that you can go freely. Nobody is going to touch you. There is security forces, entire India is behind you, and cinema will be a success story in the Kashmir Valley, no matter what now. Nobody can stop it.